We at the McKinsey Global Institute have undertaken what we think is the most comprehensive global assessment of adaptation needs and costs around the world. And our starting point as we did this was the climate of today. What we find is that already today, about 40% of the Earth's land area is exposed to at least one type of heat, flooding, wildfire, or drought event. And going forward on the current trajectory of the world's emissions, the Earth is expected to warm by about 2°C by 2050. What that would do is take that 40% of land area that is exposed today and make that 80% of land area. So virtually everywhere in the world will experience climate conditions that are material enough to warrant adaptation, often more frequently and more severely than today. Now, the good news is that there are many proven cost-effective adaptation measures that already exist. We're not talking about fundamental new innovation here. Things like cooling systems, irrigation systems, flood protection measures all already exist. And they have positive benefit to cost ratios, meaning for every dollar you invest, you avoid $3 or oftentimes even more in terms of avoided damages. And so adaptation is a good buy. However, the bad news is that we're already today not spending the amount that we should be, and costs are only due to rise with climate change. So today, the world should be spending about $540 billion annually to protect itself by our measure. That 40% of land area that I described should be spending $540 billion annually, but we're only spending $190 billion. And going forward with climate change, the amount that we would need to spend to protect ourselves at 2°C is due to rise to about $1.2 trillion. And so there's a big gap today, and the need only rises going forward. Despite the fact that adaptation is a good buy, spending is not a given. And so the question we really should be asking ourselves is, how do we scale adaptation effectively? There are many good examples and approaches that work for adaptation around the world. One way I like to think about that question is to think about what can we do to make adaptation easier for individuals, for companies, for communities. And there are a few different lenses by which you could answer that and think about how to make adaptation easier. The first is to think about how can you make adaptation more likely to happen, more scalable. And things like better data on risks across communities, what climate hazards communities are exposed to, things like better data on what actually works, what adaptation measures are effective and can be applied in different contexts can really help scale adaptation. So better data and awareness is one. The second is, how do we make adaptation more affordable? And there are, again, many ways we could think about making adaptation more affordable. An example of this is embedding resilience upfront into decisions we're making today, so you're not retrofitting after the fact. If you're putting a building up, if you're building a factory, if you're building a bridge, if you're building a train station, how do you make sure that these facilities, this infrastructure is resilient from the get-go, so you're not required to do costly retrofits down the road? Is one example of making adaptation more affordable. Another is planning for the long term. So if you're building an asset today that is going to be around in 20 years, in 30 years, in 40 years, you need to build it to be resilient, not just for the climate of today, but also for the climate of the future. Really embedding resilience upfront can help make it more affordable over the long term. The good news is there's a lot of momentum on adaptation now, everything from private capital thinking about opportunities for adaptation finance to governments thinking about national adaptation plans. To me, one action that I'd really like to see in the next 12 to 18 months is for us to stop asking and thinking about this as purely a finance question. I think if we only ask the question of how do we unlock capital, we will only develop solutions that are like pushing on a string, because finance alone will be like pushing on a string. You need pull for finance. And so I would like us to reframe the adaptation question to be not how do we unlock capital, but how do we spur demand in the real economy for adaptation.